Hiya, how are you? How are you? If you're watching this, please come join me on the live. I would love to have you here. I'm gonna be talking or answering some questions that I have received through on one of my TikToks, and it's all about allyship and the questions that you have asked me. I want to do video responses to all of them, but there's a lot, so I want to kind of answer them in here, and then maybe I'll do a video for each of them as well. So for those of you who have joined, hello, how are you going? If you are in Australia, let me know what country you're on. Let me know what Aboriginal country you're on. I'm on Whadjuk country. So this is Noongar country here in Boorloo, which is Perth, WA. And I am an Aboriginal woman. I am a Wadawurrung Noongar woman. So my country is up in the Kimberleys. So Wadawurrung country is up in the Kimberleys, up near Derby, near Broome area. That's my maternal grandmother's country. And then also Noongar country is also my country, but I'm a Ballardong Noongar. So Whadjuk country isn't my country, but it's still my Noongar people. Hello. I hope that hasn't interrupted the session. Okay, so let's get into some questions, hey. So lovely to have you here. Okay, so one question I did get asked, which I have already answered this one in a video reply, is I struggle with trying to talk to someone who refuses to see any other point of view but their whitewashed education. And now in this is something I find so common with my clients. For those of you who don't know, I am an inclusion, diversity and equity and allyship coach and mentor. Now I see this all the time, and what I've noticed is that allies will be so passionate about changing people's minds when they see people who they believe their ideals are detrimental to Aboriginal people, or their ideals are racist, and they will do everything they can to try and change those opinions. My advice to you is don't waste your energy. Don't waste your time on them. Their minds are set. They are not open to receiving new information from you. What they believe is part of the core of who they are. And so you coming into them and saying, no, actually, this is wrong. How you're thinking about it is actually really harmful to a group of people, is not going to help the situation. It does lots of things to them psychologically that prevent them from reasoning with you. So with those group of people, that's not the space for allies to be in, to be talking with those particular people. The best people to be talking with are the people who are open to listening to new ideas, new concepts. This is a better use of your energy, and it won't be draining to your energy because you'll know that conversation is respected and different points of view are valued in that space. So absolutely don't worry about those people whose minds are set. Move on and utilize your voice, utilize your energy, utilize your time in spaces which are going to have better outcomes, better impact with people who are willing to listen and potentially change their behaviors, ideas or perspectives. Hello from Wurundjeri Willem. Beautiful. It's exhausting trying to explain to those people, they just refuse to see. And absolutely, and something I think is really important to consider as well is who gets to decide what's right and wrong from any perspective. Maybe there isn't such a thing as right or wrong. We just know within ourselves, within our court, what we call our court, our heart, and our Wirrin, which is our spirit here, we just know what is and isn't right for us. So that's something to really consider in these conversations as well. And coming to it at a very neutral space where how or whether that person decides to change their opinion or decides to change their ideologies about these particular subjects, if you can decide within yourself that regardless of what the outcome is with this particular person, you are okay and it doesn't make a difference. That is something that's really quite powerful, because then the conversation and how it goes towards the end isn't going to dictate how you feel within yourself. You walk in feeling powerful and knowing who you are, and you walk out feeling powerful and knowing who you are, regardless of that situation. Okay, the next question that I have received is trying to navigate lending public support, in brackets, instead of just agreeing privately and not sharing posts, etc., but not just being performative. Now, I do want to say, if you do hear something, it is my fish tank in the background. If you can hear that, I'm sorry about that noise. Okay, so with that particular one, this is a really great question, because it is about allies who really want to essentially amplify the voices of Aboriginal people in their spaces that they have, in public spaces. So something that I will say to this particular question is, it seems like you haven't narrowed down what your lane is, what's important to you, and what is your kind of spark? What are you here to actually do? Because if you're unsure on how to actually speak about these things or share these things, it seems like that's not a clear thing in you, and not understanding what your actual values are. So when you are amplifying the voices of Aboriginal people, it's really important that those particular voices or those people are in resonance with you and the type of world that you want to be creating as well. I mean, I'm not going to go and share and amplify marginalized groups who the things that they're saying are absolutely completely offensive to my being. So you need to find those people who are looking for positive social change that doesn't hurt others, but also is in resonance with you and what you want, and the kind of world you want to be creating together with them. And also with that, when you're amplifying, you're not speaking for, you're not speaking on behalf of, you're simply pressing like the share button. In any instance you can, share the exact thing that that marginalized person shared. Share the exact thing that that Aboriginal person shared. Because one problem that continuously comes up is when allies want to paraphrase what Aboriginal people have said. And so it therefore comes from the perspective or the new tone of a white person, and that is absolutely not what we want. We want to be making sure that the message, the way it's said, how it's delivered, and the perspective it comes from, in the tone it comes from, is coming from that Aboriginal person. So I hope that has helped. Now, in terms of you don't want to be just performative, you're not going to be performative if you are constantly seeking out and listening to Aboriginal voices. You are constantly pressing the share button wherever you can to lend your platform to those voices. And definitely, if you're continuously going and you are making sure you're doing the work, which is unpacking your own privilege, understanding your biases, and really doing the inner work you need to do to be able to understand at a deeper level, a core level, how systemic racism is, how systemic discrimination is, and how it also has been deeply embedded into each of us because of the society that we live in. So if you're doing this work, it's not performative. Also, when we're talking about performative allyship, that sounds like you're worried about what other people say to you. So if you know that you are actually there and you're doing what you can with the knowledge you have, with the information you have, you are amplifying the voices, you are listening, you are learning, you are doing that stuff, you know within yourself you're not performative. So the only person you need to worry about is you know your own effort that you're putting into this. And if you are someone who is deeply concerned with social justice, and you are deeply concerned with the treatment of Aboriginal people, you are going to be the worst critic of yourself, whether you're actually doing enough or not. I just got a comment in, this platform is so much better for sharing info. Yeah, I was sharing it on Instagram, but got warned. You got warned? So at Commerce Profit Coach from Instagram. It's beautiful, thank you for sharing that. Yeah, look, in all honesty, I've been on TikTok probably maybe, I would say a month now, like actively wanting to be present in this space. And what I have found is this space is absolutely amazing for sharing information. On Facebook, I found that it's very much, I just want to come here and have fun. I don't want to talk about social issues. I don't want to get serious. And I'm going to be very conservative with the way I interact with your stuff. On Instagram, on the other hand, I find it very spammy. It's very difficult to get complex things like racism and social justice and inequities into an Instagram post. However, I have found this to be really, really great platform. But also I have found that in this particular space, we're open to be more us, more real about this stuff. So I love this space. Hey, Maddie. I'm just going to decline this invitation to go live with someone at the moment. I just want to answer quite a few of these questions I have before I need to head off to grab my children from school. So you had your account also taken down for sharing about deaths in prison. So, oh my gosh. And this is a problem that we have when we have community guidelines, especially when those community guidelines aren't culturally informed within those spaces that they are happening. So, you know, Facebook and Instagram and even TikTok aren't really culturally informed in the Aboriginal space on what's okay and what's not okay. And certainly, although they seem to like when there's lots of interaction, which is usually when there's kind of an uproar or a disagreement, when it's about social justice issues, the people who are trying to address those social justice issues are usually the ones that get shut down. And this is just in my observation of people who speak up about these particular things and not attacking, and attacking has been used so often for people who talk about social justice issues. They're the ones who get shut down because it's seen as though they are the ones who are starting those things. In reality, it's not starting anything. This is something that is continuously happening. And until we address these things and actually have conversations about it, where those conversations are not always going to be led to people being shut down, when we bring up those topics, especially when they are respectful topics or respectful conversations. Okay, I might leave it there, but I will get on to the next question. Okay. My main challenge is not understanding that line of stay in my lane and speak up. I'm always afraid of overstepping the mark. Okay, this is a really great question because there are actually quite clear lines in spaces where you can speak up in terms of you staying in your lane or amplifying. So the thing is, if you haven't experienced that thing firsthand, you can't speak up about it. That's not for you to say. That's not your story. That's other people's story. Now, you may support the voices, you may support that community, but you speaking up about it, that's you overstepping the mark. That is a space where you need to be amplifying the voices of the people who have experienced that thing firsthand. So like I said, love that share button, share, share, share. That's where you can do that kind of stuff. Also, you're not there to deliver the story. You're not there to deliver the impacts that it's had. That is their story to share. The people who've experienced that particular social issue, that's their story. It's up to you though to say or bring up or bring awareness to, hey, have we considered this particular thing? And if the answer is no, maybe we could look into that and open that conversation in that space like that. And that really helps you understand where that line is of where you speak up. So you speak up when you have identified through your own allyship learning and listening to Aboriginal people, you can see there's gaps in certain spaces. And the more you learn about these things, the more you learn about your own unconscious biases, the better you get at identifying where there are gaps. And if you're in spaces where there are no Aboriginal people, you can be that person to go, look, I am not Aboriginal, but I can see through my own listening and learning, there are some gaps here. And then what you can do is, in that space, if you have influence, you go, because I have influence, people listen to me in this space, people respect me and value me in this space, I've identified this thing and brought awareness to it. Now it's time for me to pass the mic over, to actually bring in someone who has experienced that thing and allow your influence to move over with your mic to that new person and go, I don't know anything about this, they do, here you go, listen to them now. Okay, let me have a look at the next question. So someone said, I think another good question to ask this is, what do mob think allies should know? The amount of times I'm answering the same questions over and over. Absolutely, I wholeheartedly agree. That is certainly a great question, and there are lots of things that Aboriginal people want allies to know. But consider this. You have a group of people, the Aboriginal people, who are going through massive healing at the moment. It is a lot of work. It's a lot of internal love that's required, a lot of internal acceptance, and it's trying to release a lot of the shame, a lot of the yucky feelings that we have. There is lots of this happening in our families. There are lots of deaths that are happening in our families, really in deaths through injustice and mistreatment that are happening that don't ever need to happen. So we're dealing with a lot, and also on top of that, we're dealing with intergenerational traumas. There is so much compounding stuff that Aboriginal people are dealing with in any given moment of their life. So to have allies constantly come and ask questions to people who, for one, are not saying, hey, come and ask me these questions, I'm open, ready to them. And two, it is quite, it's coming from a space of deep privilege when you expect that Aboriginal people will just answer your questions whenever you want, however you want them. So it's really good to seek out people like me who are there going, I volunteer. I'm here for you to ask questions. I'm here for you to engage in my services, and not free services, by the way, not free. There needs to be an energetic exchange through financial means to be able to access my knowledge, to be able to access my time, my space, my connection, all those things. Find those people and make sure you value them, make sure you respect them, make sure you are paying for their time, for their services, because at the end of the day, we've got families to feed, and this kind of work is really, really highly emotionally taxing and draining. Okay, so I hope that has answered that. And yes, absolutely, that's a wonderful question. Thank you for presenting that. Okay, next question. For me, it's the worry about saying something that I'm uninformed about and seeming more like the problem than an ally. Yeah, and this again is a very similar question to the one before last. And it is just making sure that you're in your lane, making sure you know exactly the things that you're able to speak about and not speak about. If you're uninformed about something, no, you do not speak on that. That's not your experience. And if you are uninformed about something, it tells me very, very clearly that you are not the one who is impacted directly by this particular topic or subject, and therefore you should not be speaking. There is such power in speaking, but there's so much power in listening too. Is this a wig? No, it is not a wig. This is my hair. Oh. That was the giggle I did. I saw that. Is it a wig? No, it's not. This is my hair. And I've had pink hair for about 3 years now. I love it. Okay. Someone else said, for me, it's being uneducated that I don't know even where to start to find the correct information or to not offend anyone. Okay, this is really cool. This is really, really good, because there are so many sources out there that are not correct information. There are so many sources out there that are completely whitewashed information. There is so much information out there about Aboriginal people and culture that is absolutely written by white people. And there's sources that claim to be credible, and they're absolutely not. The other thing to remember is who has written it, and this also comes down to things like history books. Who writes history books? The victors write history books. And so you don't see the perspectives of everyone on history. And this is why we're having such a big problem in Australia at the moment, because our history books do not reflect Aboriginal history. An interesting thing too, in Australia, history is considered from settlement. Before settlement is prehistory, which is very telling of the perspective it's coming from. Okay, so finding the correct information. If you want the correct information, it's about building relationships with Aboriginal people. It's about building relationships with Aboriginal-led organisations to answer these kinds of things. So you can go to things like Aboriginal corporations, and they usually have information and resources. They usually have programs, or they have events, and you can go along to those kinds of things. There is also more and more books coming out that are written by Aboriginal people with Aboriginal perspectives. You can go and look at those things too. But at the end of the day, if you're looking for things that are like more cultural side of things, I will say to you, if you do not belong or identify as an Aboriginal person, you do not have access. You do not have immediate permission to have knowledge about our culture, about our stuff. That is speaking from a space of privilege. And just like with any other culture, just because you want to know more about it doesn't actually automatically give you permission to having access into it. And this is one big problem, which is almost like a culture in Western society, is this perception that, oh, I love it and I appreciate it and I want to show my appreciation by learning more. In reality, appreciation doesn't mean access. Appreciation means appreciation. And we are not required to tell you anything about our culture. That is not something that we need to do. We're not required to. We don't have to. We have autonomy over what we release and what we keep. And the thing is, we are, generally speaking, very giving people, and we love our culture so much, and we also love sharing it. So when there is spaces where Aboriginal people are sharing that culture, please value that, because that is really deep. That is really showing respect, that's showing care, and also honor it. And what I mean by honor it is know that that is something special that has been gifted to you, but it's been gifted to you in a way of not passing that on to others. That's not for you to give to others. That's not for you to share with others. Because a lot of the time, when we are imparting cultural information or knowledge to you, it's because you've built up a strong enough relationship with us that we trust you with this new knowledge. And that trust means we trust you not to then go and say that to someone else, to not try to capitalize from it, to not try and sell that in any way, or not try and profit in any way from that particular thing. Cultural appropriation is just rife. It's huge. And it is because there is this culture of, okay, well, I've been shown something, therefore I take it as a permission to go and use it in a different way and profit from it. And that's not how it works. Okay, what's the time? Okay, we'll have to get off pretty soon, but let's answer a few more. Okay, my parents, they constantly say they don't see race, then make derogatory generalizations. I can't even use the proper term First Nations around them. Okay. First point, proper term. First Nations isn't necessarily the proper term. It is a term. We aren't homogenous. We don't all identify the same way. Me, for instance, I identify as First Nations and I identify as Aboriginal, and mostly I identify as Warrawarnunga. That's how I identify. I do not really identify myself as Indigenous. And it's for some different reasons. Some other people only identify as Aboriginal. Some people only identify as First Nations. Some people only identify as Indigenous. Some people only identify as their language group name. Okay, someone said there are scholar articles I've come across where Indigenous communities told their story and culture. It has been written by Indigenous Australians who have gone to the elders. Yep. Well, that's absolutely fine, as long as it's not being toned to a different perspective. That is the main thing, because the way language is used, and when you look at linguistics, when you look at the way sentences are structured, when you look at the particular word usage, when you look at the emphasis on different words, you very clearly understand what perspective certain texts are coming from. So if you just keep that in mind when you're doing that. Now back to this question. Okay, so they don't see race and then they make derogatory generalizations. Second of all, for that particular one. Second of all is that you want to see race. This whole idea of blindness, color blindness, I don't see color, is dangerous. And concepts like, well, you know, we're all the same under the skin, it's only the surface things that's different, is further perpetuating this idea that we need to be the same in order to be respected and valued. And what we want to get to is, I see that you're very different from me, but I still value you and I still love you, and you know, you're accepted. We want to be able to, as a people, as a group of people, to value difference. And in not seeing race, that's a problem, because it says, I can't value you if I don't think you're the same as me. I can't respect you if I don't see you're the same as me. I absolutely understand similarities help to build community, because when you have similarities, you have commonality where you can share things between each other and it can create friendships. But understanding that a person is not only defined by one thing, they're not just defined by their look, they're also defined by their value systems. they're also defined by what they do. They are also defined by, the vision of what they want for their future. They're defined by so many different things. And we can find commonalities in so many other places other than physical appearance or race, even though race isn't really a thing, but it's a thing. So if we can understand that, yes, we can have commonalities, and we can be like, who here loves pizza? And then someone else, yeah, I love pizza. Or who else had an auntie who helped them make this type of bread and they love this type of bread? Yes, you can come together and you can form friendships around those beautiful things. But understanding too that difference is amazing. Difference adds richness. Difference means innovation. Difference means together we grow. When it's all sameness, we are stagnant. And absolutely, yes, it does dismiss their experience of racism. When you're saying, I don't see race or I don't see color, you are denying them their human experience and their experience with racism or any other forms of discrimination because of that particular thing. Because it's basically saying, you don't have that particular thing, so therefore how can you be discriminated against? Because I don't see that, therefore I don't see your oppression. Thank you so much for sharing that. Okay, I will share one more question and have a chat about that, and then I will have to hop off. Okay, working in hospitality and having customers say racist things, I don't have a problem shutting my co-workers down if they do it. So this is talking about dealing with customers who are being racist. Okay, and if anyone here would like to go further into this, I'm an inclusion, diversity, equity and allyship coach, and you can have private coaching and mentoring from me. Just DM me on Instagram through my profile if you're interested. So, okay, with this particular one, this can be really tricky because it's like towing the line between, the customer is always right, with your own value systems of going, no, I'm not going to stand for this racism. I don't care who you are. So what you can do is, first of all, identify where you have influence. Now, you don't have influence if you are a frontline worker dealing with customers face to face at doing this, because most likely you are going to be the one who gets in trouble with your workplace or by your bosses, or there's going to be some repercussions for you in a negative sense for you. We don't want to put you in that space. But what you can do is identify who in that workspace has influence to change policies around accepting racist behavior from customers. So once you identify that, you can come in and you can talk to that person and bring the awareness and going, look, I have noticed that there's not really much in any terms of policy or training for us on the front line in terms of how to deal with people when they are being overtly or latently racist. There is no guidelines, there are no steps for us to take in order to deal with these particular situations. And I feel it's important because our customers are people who identify in this way that this other person is speaking down about or being racist about. So I think it's something we need to address to make sure we are doing our part and taking responsibility in protecting our other customers. So you've got to always turn it back to how it's going to be affecting the business bottom line in terms of looking and caring for customers, but also in terms of their sales and stuff as well. You got to talk the talk. You got to know what the values of that particular business are and look at people who actually have the influence to be able to change any of those particular things that are going to then impact you and your work standards or work practices as a frontline worker. So once you can do that, sit down and have a conversation to them. And if you directly it's not appropriate or it's not the thing for you to do to directly contact that person, use your power of influence to influence someone in the middle who does that. And it's just about having the conversations. I've identified this, and it's not okay, or it's very uncomfortable. I don't know what to do in this situation because I don't know where this business stands on these lines. Can we establish something? Or inquire, does this workplace have a RAP plan in place, reconciliation action plan? And if not, well, why not? Because basically every other business is doing it. Are we falling behind as a business because we're not actually looking into this? Sometimes when we're having these conversations, sometimes when we want to create change, we can get really impatient about, I can see something's not right here and I want it to change now. But it's taken 200 plus years to get to this point, and these businesses are built on systemic racism, systemic oppression, not only of Aboriginal people, but a lot of other marginalised groups too. So feeling and wanting to solve social issues in a single conversation is just something that's not possible. It's about respectfully having to and from conversations where you're going in without expectations. You're just like, let's have this chat. Why isn't this happening? It's something that absolutely is inevitable. It is going to change. Absolutely 100%. I have no doubt about that, because we're having this conversation right now. It can't not happen. What the Aboriginal community needs from allies is patience. Because sometimes the overexcitement of the possibility of changing can sometimes evoke emotions which can set us back a little bit. So we're very patient people, and we know we communicate with the universe constantly. And so there is a right time for everything, and there is also a process that needs to go through. So for me as a Noongar, I understand that we have our 6 seasons process. And although 6 seasons talks about our weather, it's not just about the weather, it's about everything else we do in life. And I know that if it doesn't follow the 6 seasons process, it's going to fail. And it can seem long, and it can seem daunting, and it can just be like, come on, just something happen. But it must go through that process. Without that process, the whole thing collapses. And what we're talking about is not just simply changing a behavior. What we're talking about is changing a whole culture. We're talking about changing a whole society. Sure, there might be little things in it, but essentially that's the goal. The goal is to change the culture here. The culture that disrespects Aboriginal people, that does not value Aboriginal people's lives in the same way that it values white people's lives in this space. So be kind to yourself, do the work. Do the work to really understand and unpack your privilege. Do the work to bring your awareness to unconscious biases. And know, from me, I'm so appreciative of you and your allyship. So appreciative. So that is all I have time for today. Thank you so much for everyone who's come along and joined me on this live. This is only my 2nd live, so I hope it has been informative for you and you have enjoyed it. I did want to answer some more questions, but maybe I'll do that on another live. So if you did like the content of this live, please make sure, if you're not already, to come and follow me. And yeah, hope to see you on the next one. You are so welcome. Thank you so much. Bye for now.